not live yet, but don't be nervous when you are. Okay.
No.
Oh, wait. You hold on. Okay.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You should probably turn that down. Okay. So right. So you got a good intro into. Hold on. Okay. You got a good intro into a co-host here. Her name is Leah. She hasn't been on the channel before, but she wanted to be here. I think, hopefully, and she is one of Janet's friends. She's in the Philippines, and she is just gonna join me as I venture into this important topic of whether Christians should celebrate Christmas, which is obligatory every single year. So, Leah, say hi to everyone.
Hi everyone.
Right.
Leah.
All right. Yeah. She's here for the ride. So let's get the plane off the ground into the sky. I'm gonna be reacting to probably 2 videos. Just as a heads up, Leah, I usually go for pretty long time. So whenever you want to leave, just say you need to leave, because sometimes I do it for a long time. So, for like 3 something hours usually. So basically, everyone asks this question each year, right? Which is, should Christians celebrate Christmas? And everyone is like, well, but it comes from the winter solstice holidays, and it was used by Constantine or the Roman Empire in order to get out the pagans, and so Christianity can be more acceptable, or some narrative like that, or it comes from the Osiris, or some pagan mythological concept. And so Christianity, the traditions of it were stolen from pagans, and even Christians believe this. They're like, oh yeah, Christians shouldn't celebrate Christmas, and they quote like Jeremiah 10, which has like tinsels and whatever. But I'm going to answer that question today: is Christmas actually demonic? Okay, and you'll be surprised to find no, it's probably not. You can celebrate Christmas joyfully. You can celebrate with your family, celebrate the birth of Jesus. That's perfectly fine. And hey, any excuse to get more presents is always great. Always great by me. So we're just going to start it here, and I'm mostly going to be reacting to comments that are in the horizontal stream because that's usually what I prefer. So if you're in the vertical stream, sorry, you're going to get the silent treatment. No offense there. So we're going to start with the first video by Wes Huff. And tell me if the audio is good, by the way.
3 years ago, I made an infographic on some reading I'd done on supposed
I think the audio is good.
3 years ago, I made an.
Yep, seems good. Also, the video might be choppy, but don't worry about it. It's all good.
Pagan origins of Christmas. At the start of the research, I would have told you that some of these things were pagan and that Christians had co-opted a number of them, and that while their origins might have been pagan, they were now completely disassociated from their pagan beginnings. However,
and which is, again, that's what a lot of Christians believe. It's like, well, it was originally pagan. It started out that way, but we don't really celebrate it like that anymore. We don't celebrate it like those pagans over there, like those false god believers. We're just, we're better now. They're not like us. But he's saying, well, no, actually, it's a little bit more complicated than that.
As I read more and dug into the literature, and specifically the original sources, I found that my preconceived notion was actually backwards. In fact, some of the things I thought had pagan inceptions were actually practiced by Christians before they were by pagans, and pagans had appropriated them from Christians, not the other way around.
But that's usually how it is, though, because everyone is like stealing stuff from us. It's like the philosophers take philosophy from us, the lawmakers steal stuff from us. Everyone steals stuff from us except believing in Christ as God. Okay. And really that's it kind of feels good. But in a way it's also kind of sad because nobody actually respects us. Hold on.
At the beginning of December, I reposted this infographic, pointing out that there was lack of evidence regarding the pagan genesis of a few modern Christian traditions, and boy, did I get a response. It's obviously pagan, and everybody who has a brain on their head knows it. You will be judged for your leading astray the flock from Yeshua Adonai Yahuwah to follow the great Shaitan Ra.
So that was definitely words. That was definitely words on a page. So Yeshua Adonai Yahweh, which I guess is Jesus the Lord God. Jesus the Lord God. Okay. Which, so first of all, whenever, hold on. Hold on. Some more people, a lot more people asking me money. Okay, I'll send them the money later for Christmas. As a first thing, whenever someone uses Yeshua instead of Jesus, you already know you're dealing with someone either obnoxious or Hebrew Israelite, which is pretty obnoxious. So this person probably goes that direction, and because they're like, oh, you're leading away the flock. Well, probably believing you can lose your salvation if you practice Christmas. So guys, make sure you don't practice Christmas so you can keep your salvation, so you don't lose your salvation this Christmas. See, you thought you were getting a gift for Christmas. You're actually getting the gift taken away. So stay cooked.
A Christmas tree is an idol.
Oh, wait. This is what I said. Jeremiah 10, right? Right, where it talks about the tinsel, that's probably not the exegesis of that verse, but we don't need to get into that now. So yeah, Christmas tree is an idol. Bro doesn't know what an idol is. Tell me you don't know what an idol is, okay? Because nobody worships a Christmas tree. That's absurd.
Bring it sacrifices, hold hands around it to sing songs, and then bow down to it to get your presents.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll ask our guest. Leah, have you ever worshipped a Christmas tree?
No.
Okay, good. Because this person, what was that?
I didn't worship the Christmas tree.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because this person is basically saying that you bring sacrifices to it, you bow down, you got to bow down under the Christmas tree to get your presents, and you sing songs around it. Like, so yeah, basically, according to this person, you're worshiping the Christmas tree.
It isn't like that. But it was
So
just a celebration.
wait, what was that? You got I don't know if your mic is low, Ate.
I think it was just a celebration, not worshiping other things, especially the Christmas tree. But remembering the birth of Christ, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, this person is like different levels of insane. Saying you're worshiping the Christmas tree, you're bringing calling gifts as sacrifices is kind of crazy, but okay, kind of crazy, and calling like basically, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, like that, calling that a demonic chant is sort of, again, a little bit crazy, but okay. You can try your best to say it, but what else could it be about? It could be about many things.
I've never seen a clear example of pagan worship before. Jeremiah 10, 3 to 4.
I've never seen a clear example of pagan worship before. That's absurd. Like you're saying like the Satanic Temple, right? I don't know. You go to like New York, you go to the Satanic Temple, and you can actually bring over your baby to be anointed with the oil. Okay, as the satanic priest, the Luciferian priest, like blesses quote unquote your baby. You think that is not as clear example of pagan worship as Christmas? Okay, bro, you're all good. You're all good.
4 clearly forbids you to have a Christmas tree. You can try your best to say it doesn't, but what else could it be talk about? You just want to justify your sinful fleshly Christmas is pagan, and it comes from Babylonian pedophilia.
Again, that's such a Babylonian pedophilia. What about Christmas is pedophilic? I ain't even gonna ask that. That's an absurd. It doesn't take a brain. Doesn't take a brain scientist. That's an interesting kind of scientist.
It doesn't take a brang scientist to figure that one out. Yes, it is. You are going to held accountable for every single thing you teach that is wrong and can mislead the souls. You are telling people it's not pagan, a celebration that is rooted with Nimrod, Semiramis.
Oh, the lap sitting. Oh, wait. Okay. Well, okay. Weirdly enough, I've never actually done that. But Leah, have you seen people, or have you actually, like, as a kid, you sit in Santa's lap and you tell them like what gifts you want?
What, Kuya?
So like, maybe the people in the audience would know more, but like, there's like a tradition where, and if anyone knows it other than layman, you can say, but there's like a tradition. You have like the mall Santas, right? Okay, Babylonian pedophilia is crazy, but you have like the mall Santas, and they're like sitting in a Christmas area. There's like presents and a Christmas tree around, and then like he's sort of sitting on his throne, and then the child comes up, sits on the lap, and says, "Hey Santa, I want to have XYZ for Christmas." And then Santa responds, "Oh, well, if you've been a good boy or girl, you and not on the naughty list, then you're gonna get your present," something like that. So that is like, I think that's what they're talking about. I've never done that. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Leah.
I,
Well,
I didn't know.
yeah, if you haven't seen it, yeah, it's probably more of an American tradition. I'm not gonna lie. It could be in other places, but but yeah, basically, Eminem showed it in a video. Yeah. So, Eminem is also responsible for pagan worship, but that one was obvious.
And his son Tammuz, a pagan celebration to worship the sun god? Really? It's not about us and this worldly traditions. It's about the one and only Messiah and his name being honored, not just for Christmas, but in everything we do.
Well, I mean, like, I understand the point of that, and like they're trying to say, oh, you shouldn't be engaging in worldly activities. And like, I will say, I'm not gonna die on Christmas. I'm not gonna stake my ground on Christmas. Like, Christmas, first of all, I don't really celebrate Christmas all that much. It's mostly just for family time and celebration and stuff like that. But like, basically, I don't really personally celebrate it all that much, but I'm not gonna die on that hill, you know. And so, but I will say it is very commercialized. It is very like secularized almost. You have secular people saying Merry Christmas, not understanding the purpose of it. It's a Christ mass from the Catholics. So I understand, like, I sort of understand it, like why they would say that. But at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, but just because people appropriate it doesn't mean it's still not Christian. So that's what I would say about that.
And the always popular High Mass of Apollyon the Destroyer, filthy.
Okay, what? Crazy.
Puke emoji. Now, obviously, these are examples of some pretty extreme comments, but I'm not kidding when I say there were over 100 negative comments, some that I just had to delete because they were just not appropriate. My DMs.
So someone was probably like doxing his family because you supported Christmas, so you deserve to go to hell, Wes Huff. That's insane. Please don't do that.
Also got pretty crowded with people accusing me of being a wolf, false prophet, Satan lover, and so on and so forth. And the point of this video is not to focus on the crazy, although there's a lot of that to go around. My purpose is to try and correct some of the misinformation and misunderstanding surrounding this particular topic. Misinformation that I myself believed before, misunderstandings that I myself was ignorant on because I hadn't looked at the source material on the subject.
I don't think a lot of historians have. Not a lot of historians have basically, been in tune with the video. Not a lot of historians have actually gone through the evidence itself, and so they'll just say some random statement. If they're an atheist, they'll say this statement. If they're a Christian, they'll say this statement. If they're whatever religious belief, and so they're not actually looking into the evidence of why Christmas is as it is. And again, don't get me wrong. I think Christmas could be a lot better. Okay, it's very westernized, very commercialized. Not a big fan of it, but it's not a pagan holiday. Of all the holidays you could pick, I mean, I'd say probably like 4th of July is more pagan than Christmas, for obvious reasons.
Start off with some of the most common accusations and objections I see. The first, and probably the most talked about, is the date of Christmas itself. It's often asserted that the date of December 25th was already a common one used in ancient Near East and Greco-Roman world. The Christians merely scheduled their celebrations of Jesus' birth on the same day as these pagan festivals to somehow make it easier for pagans or early converts to convert or start to celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, that's basically what I argued and what I know people often say in the first part of it. Well, before I started the video, I've known about that stuff. I don't think that's necessarily true. Even the belief that Constantine became a Christian for political reasons and then therefore made Christianity more acceptable, he could have believed it. Maybe, he probably did, but I would say there's also the other reason, possibly, which is that basically, I think a lot of prophets, there was like a Jewish tradition, right, where the death of a prophet would take place on the day he was conceived. And so obviously if you have 9 months of conception normally, and Jesus died on March 25th, AD 33, then it would sort of follow again from that Jewish tradition that, hey, he would be conceived on March 25th. 9 months later is December 25th. And so that was sort of a tradition because Jesus is obviously one of the prophets. He's the greatest prophet, but he is still a prophet. And so that is possibly an origin of why December 25th was created. But that's not the only one. There are many others.
Apart from the fact that I wouldn't even have that big of an issue with this concept if it was true, when you really dig into the sources on what these festivals were when they happened, the argument starts to fall apart. The leading contender for this argument is the Roman festival of Sol Invictus, the festival of the unconquered sun. It's not until the middle of the 4th century that anyone makes the connection of Sol Invictus to December 25th, and earlier inscriptions are inconsistent, placing Sol Invictus throughout August, October, and early December. Christians, on the other hand, had already pinpointed December 25th as the date they thought Jesus was born, decades before any of this. I'll go into more detail in a little bit as to the reasons behind all of that, but Sextus Julius Africanus in the late...
Yeah, I mean, so that's one of the arguments put forth. It's Sol Invictus. Again, Sol Invictus is not the only holiday that took place. He's going to go into that. But it's one of the holidays, and so people say, well, they worship the sun god, and so Christians then worshipped around that time. But yeah, as he basically pointed out, it's that's basically pretty easily debunked. I don't know if you saw it in the video, but they were celebrating around even AD 114. If you have a 1st century, 2nd century source of Christian beliefs and practices, it's usually pretty reliable.
2nd and early 3rd century had already made that conclusion, and we have some early evidence that Christians were acknowledging it as such. In reality, Roman temple worship was on the decline by the 4th century, and it is just as possible and even more probable that the pagans moved their celebrations to December 25th to compete with the Christians, who were a growing religious majority at the time. In fact, Pliny the Younger in the early 2nd century had already...
So you're saying at this time that Christians were a threat to the pagan? I mean, they've always been a threat, don't get me wrong. But it's kind of funny that Christians, they're it's sort of like this 2-family war going on with the Godfather. It's like, I'm going to put my birthday on your son's birthday. So, you can't do anything about it. And then I'm gonna retroactively pin that on you. So
he noted, potentially a little bit hyperbolically, that the Roman temples were being forsaken due to so many Christian converts. And Emperor Julian, who was emperor for 3 years in the 4th century, grew frustrated with the lack of Roman religious devotion to idols in his time and blames the Christians specifically for this pagan crisis of faith. In his work, The Origins of the Liturgical Year, historian Thomas Taylor says this exact thing when he states that it is more likely the Roman Emperor Aurelian placed Sol Invictus on December 25th to compete with the growing rate of Christianity. Others have tried to accuse December 25th of being the date of the Feast of Saturnalia, the Roman pagan festival honoring the agricultural god Saturn.
Well, you know what's also weird? It's sort of a weird argument. Like, everyone says that the Christians put December 25th, their holiday on December 25th to compete with the pagans. But it's sort of like, wait, but the pagans were doing it to each other, though, because these are mutually exclusive gods, right? So, like, you got one god being celebrated December 25th, another god being celebrated December 25th, or around that time. And so it's like, why don't you ever accuse them of stealing from each other, right? But of course, you're going to do it to Christianity because it's the double standard, because obviously people are just more critical of that holiday. And, also, I mean, you even have Hanukkah celebrated around this time. You have the Islamic holidays celebrated around this time. I'm not saying they stole it from Christianity or something like that, but it's like that's why people say happy holidays. Multiple holidays are celebrated this time. So I really wouldn't have a problem with Christianity just being one of them. I mean, it's a good way to end the year. What can I say? There's no reason. There's no reason to sort of suspect it of anything nefarious.
However, much like Sol Invictus, our earliest sources for Saturnalia come late. Macrobius in the 5th century says that Saturnalia was celebrated 14 days before January. And keep in mind that the ancient Roman calendar at this time had 2 more days in their month of December.
I gotta make sure the audio is good. Yeah, okay. Audio is good, but the visual is eh. So, I might have to fix that eventually.
Than ours does today. This only comes out then to December 17th. Brumalia, although multi-day festival in ancient Rome devoted to Saturn and Kronos, comes in as a potential candidate. But Brumalia starts in late November and ends on December 17th, right in time to celebrate the day of Saturnalia. In fact, there is no evidence that December 25th was selected to replace a pagan holiday. And other sources of deities like Tammuz, Horus, Ahura Mazda, Mithra, Attis, or Dionysus being born on or around the winter solstice, those dates come well after the 4th century, and therefore long after we know Christians had already identified Jesus' birth on December 25th and were starting to celebrate it then.
And you have so many church fathers talking about this. You have apostolic fathers talking about this. John Chrysostom is just one of them. But it's just, you need to put away this tired argument. And people will say, oh, but those are just Christian sources. Yeah, you're going to get Christian beliefs, practices from Christian sources. They're still part of history, right? They're still a source to consider. Even though if you think they're biased or whatever, you still have to consider the source because they're relevant. They're relevant to discussion. And so I never understood just discounting the church fathers, because the church fathers give us a lot. They give us the names of the gospels, the dates of the gospels. They give us also a lot of 99% of the New Testament quoted. They give us a lot of early beliefs and practices. So yeah, it's pretty obvious.
In 386, John Chrysostom says that Christmas was being celebrated on December 25th and describes it as a long-time tradition. The Phalocalian calendar, produced in 354, had Christmas listed as a holiday on December 25th already.
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly, instead of arguing, is it a pagan holiday? Is it a bad holiday? I think a better question is just, hey, is Christmas why December 25th? What led them to that conclusion, right? What led the Christians to practicing and believing that, even as early as the 2nd century, and I think he's going to get into why that is, or maybe another video might.
The first-hand sources suggest quite strongly that Christmas being celebrated on December 25th was at least an established tradition by the early 4th century within the Christian church. The truth of the matter is that no one really knows when the birth of Jesus was. Some in the early church believed it had to have been in the spring due to the shepherds' presence in the fields.
I would say, I think it's actually good that we don't know the date of the birth of Jesus. What is it? Huh? Hold on.
Shepherds were in the fields.
So basically, the thing is that I actually like the fact that we don't know the birth of Jesus, because we'd idolize it. humans are very quick to idolize. Humans are very quick to idolize things. They're very quick to take things from God and reconstrue them. Like, for instance, people took the serpent on the pole, Nahushta, and it was supposed to be a provision from God to spare them from physical death, right? To spare them from physical death. And yet people took that, they worshipped it, and eventually God destroyed it because the people were worshiping it instead of worshiping God. Okay. And God didn't order that, he didn't command that, so it was idolatry. And so the same is like if we literally had a piece, think about this, if we had a piece of the cross of Jesus, that piece would be worshipped. It would be put in a museum. People would look at it and admire it. If we had Jesus, people think they have Jesus's loincloth when he was wrapped around in his burial. I don't think that's actually Jesus, but okay, but whatever. You know, if we had a book written by Jesus, the Gospel of Jesus, you know, the Gospel of Jesus, we'd worship that too. We already worship the red letters over the regular letters of the Bible. So I think it's good that we don't know the birth of Jesus. We can get an approximation of it, but it's actually good that we don't know about the timing of the birth of Jesus. So, also, Leah wanted me to repeat the question I had about Christmas trees. Basically, that when you what is it? When you bow down to a Christmas tree, okay, and you take the gifts, are you worshiping the Christmas tree?
Not like that.
Wait, what was that?
What?
So, like, imagine
Yeah.
you got a Christmas tree, right? It's like this
Yeah.
giant tree, and it's like decked out, and you got the presents underneath. Okay, you got to bow down to get the presents. So when you bow down to get the presents, are you worshiping the Christmas tree?
Um, I don't think so.
No, yeah, no, I don't think so either. But someone said that if you worship the Christmas tree, and you celebrate Christmas, you might lose your salvation. So think about
Oh,
that. So yeah,
it's
right.
not
So
part of it. It's not part of the salvation, I guess.
right, yeah, the Christmas, whether or not you worship the Christmas tree is not part of salvation. Okay, whether or not you celebrate Christmas. Um,
Yes.
so that was part of his question. Um, but good that we got clarification on. Man, I was sweating. I was sweating. I thought I could lose my salvation this month. But Layman said we have Jesus underwear. Yeah, dude, it's like we well now when you say Jesus underwear, do you mean Jesus's underwear? Because I'm gonna be honest, I don't think people probably wore underwear. Some probably like that, but it's sort of like if we had we would put Jesus on anything. We have Jesus on everything. We have Jesus on big TVs. We have Jesus on jumbotrons. We have Jesus in Times Square. You can go to Penn Station, go to Times Square, and you'll see a Jesus, quote unquote, a Jesus mascot fighting against an Elmo. Okay, and you can record that and get 5 million views. Okay, in New York, we idolize things very easily. You know, hey, Bruce Andrews, we are discussing if Christmas is demonic. And the answer seems to be no.
from March to November. And during the winter rain months, it's unlikely, although not impossible, that they would have been out grazing with their sheep. So where did the date of December 25th come from then?
Also remember that nights and winters in like the Middle East are cold, man. They're cold, you know? So I don't know why you'd expect them to just be out there with their sheep tending if it's like super cold. Likewise, yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone. I'm going to say one more at the end of the stream. So hold on to it. Hold on to your Merry Christmases until the end of the stream. Okay? Or forever hold your peace.
Well, there was an idea within early Christianity that if you were really holy, you would die on the day you were conceived. This was...
Which is what I brought up. Now, of course, I said a prophet. I could be mixed up, or that could be part of the tradition because prophets were meant to be holy. But yeah, there is basically that. I said that before. There was basically, and by the way, I haven't watched the video yet. But so if anyone is wondering, oh, have you watched? I genuinely didn't. I watched some of the video, but I don't usually watch the full video until I get to the stream. So yeah, basically, yeah, there's a Jewish tradition. If you would die in the month that you were conceived, you know. So again, 9 months after March 25th, out pops Jesus, right? So that makes sense.
Calculated mainly because the Old Testament would record the life of individuals like Moses and present round numbers without adding months or days for how long they lived. For example, in Deuteronomy 3:7, it says that Moses was 120 years old when he died. Well, the most holiest man who ever lived was Jesus. Therefore, the early church thought he must have died on the day he was conceived. Going off of the evidence in the Gospels as to when the crucifixion was, which they believed counted out to March, and then they counted ahead 9 months, they got December 25th. Is this something we today should hang our hat on? Well, the jury is out on that one. Nonetheless, no matter which way you swing it, December 25th was not chosen for pagan reasons. And the poetry concerning the light of the world coming into the world in the darkest time of the year in the Western Hemisphere is not lost on me. So December 25th might not have pagan origins, but certainly some of the others must, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that could be good symbolism as well, where basically you have, yeah, it's the darkest month. Now, of course, again, in their robes, I doubt they would have had the comfortable clothing to be in winter at nighttime. But either way, I think it is, I think, you know, it's a beautiful story to end your year with, the birth of Jesus. It's, you know, people, every church reads it at Christmas, so I can't even blame them. The Sunday service on Christmas. So I personally, I like the symbolism, even though it may not be historically accurate. I like the symbolism, right? You have the North Star, and actually, we don't know where the North Star comes from, by the way, because it's like, okay, why would they have known that a North Star pointed to the direction of the Messiah? People go to Numbers 24, or I think Numbers 25, but I don't really know if that's actually the origin of it. There could have been some other tradition that we don't know about from those times in Persia and Babylon. But yeah, very, very odd little detail there.
I mean, what about Christmas trees? After all, don't I bring sacrifices to it while holding hands with...
That one's the most wild one. That one's the most wild one.
My loved ones to sing songs before bowing down to retrieve my presents in pagan worship? Once again, the sources we do have for the origins of the Christmas tree aren't even remotely pagan. One potential comes from the story of St. Boniface from the 8th century, when he's said to have cut down the sacred oak tree that the locals had dedicated to Thor. When he wasn't killed by lightning, he's said to have pointed to the fir tree and dedicated it to Christ. Some scholars have hypothesized that the tradition arose from the paradise trees in the 1500s. A paradise tree was an evergreen tree decorated with fruit to represent the tree of life in the Garden of Eden, and a play telling the Genesis story would be done around the paradise tree. The play...
Yeah, they're like with the Christmas tree. Personally, I don't like setting up the Christmas tree. It's very annoying and it's very hasslesome, and it requires too much effort. You know, um, not my style, right? Not my personal preference there. But it's like again, I'm not going to say Jeremiah 10, which you can even look at Jeremiah 10. That was very clearly a different type of pagan worship. Very clearly, it's not like the Christmas tree is pagan worship, but that right there is clearly pagan worship because they're bowing down to it. They're doing specific rituals around it. The Christmas tree does not come from pagan origins. And again, it's just so anachronistic in Jeremiah 10 that he'd be talking about a holiday that didn't even exist yet at a time that it wasn't even celebrated. That to me, that sounds like bad hermeneutics.
Days were typically held on December 24th, and then as the fruit was taken off the tree remained, and it was then decorated for the next day in celebration for Christmas. These trees set up in people's houses would remind them of the Garden of Eden on Christmas Eve and the restoration of Christ coming into the world, of the garden to come in the new heaven and the new earth.
Yeah, I don't, I'm going to be real, honestly. I don't see that. Like, I don't look at my Christmas tree and I'm like, yo, that's the recreation. In fact, I would have never made this connection until Wes Huff told me about it, because that doesn't seem intuitive to me. It doesn't look like the Garden of Eden tree. I would imagine a Garden of Eden tree is like more like a bonsai tree at best, But of course, we can't have bonsai trees. And if you're in Florida, you're going to have a palm tree, So like the last thing I'd associate with a pine cone tree is the Garden of Eden. I mean, I understand why that sounds nice, but it's a little bit far-fetched, I know.
There is also a famous story linked to the Protestant reformer Martin Luther, in which he is said during a winter evening stroll to have been overcome with the brilliance of the stars in the night sky, painting the background over the evergreen forests. In order to capture this moment, it is recorded that Luther cut down and erected a tree in the main hall of their house, covering its branches with lighted candles. Although the tradition was well known...
That sounds extremely dangerous. Like think about that. Like, you're taking candles and you're using it to light a tree, okay? That does not sound good at all. That tree could just come on fire. And they're not even like protected lights. At least with like my Christmas lights, they're protected and it's like within the little glass container, right? Honestly, L move from Martin Luther. He's been taking a lot of L's recently.
From that point on in Germany, and
why is it going back and forth? Oh wait, that makes sense. There it is.
And dispersed parts of Europe, it was not practiced in Britain until the 19th century. When Queen Victoria married her German cousin Prince Albert, the custom was brought into the household of the British royal family. From then on, it was associated with royalty, and wealthier middle-class families soon followed suit with the tradition during the holiday season.
But here's the interesting thing about all the wealthy practices. All of the wealthy practices eventually get disseminated into the common people. And so you'll have something that was just really common for wealthy people, that was very most likely and exclusively for wealthy people, which was being fat. But now everyone is fat. So, hey, the tradition carries on. The tradition carries on to the commoners. That was messed up. Or like having a turkey. Like, dude, imagine like going over and like taking a turkey, roasting it after you butcher it. Like, dude, that probably costs a lot. You could probably get one at Walmart for like $20, You'd be fat. PHAT, which means cool.
Here in Canada, where I live, it had been adopted as a tradition just prior to the 1700s, where we have records of Brunswick soldiers stationed in Quebec who are said to have decorated large fir trees with candles and fruit during the holiday season. Now, it's true that ancient pagans across Europe used trees in certain practices and ceremonies. This much is a true fact.
Yeah, I mean, like that's just like like I wouldn't even take that as a pagan thing. Like that's just like trees are representative of like life usually. Like Mother Gaia, that's another pagan god. Um, you know, she's usually represented by the tree of life. Even, again, that probably takes its origins from Christianity, in my opinion. You know, but it's like, yeah, dude. I don't like. There's no reason to associate the tree with just paganism. Everyone uses it. New Age people use it. Spiritual people use it. Judaism, you know, everyone uses it. That's not what that means. Wait. Wait, you mean fat? PHAT?
However, none of these practices resembles what eventually became the Christmas tree, and none of them.
Fat means pretty hot and tempting. Oh. Oh, okay. Okay. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, hold on. That actually makes everything click in my mind. I didn't even know that was like I actually didn't even know that was a abbreviation or acronym, because like I was like because I didn't know that, like, this sounds crude, but like, you know how people say thought, right? I didn't know that that was an acronym. I thought that was just like it was like a shortened term for something, or like Riz. That one's different because that's just a shortening of charisma. So that one makes more sense to me. So yeah.
Can be tied to fir or pine trees specifically. Aside from the fact that by the time that Christmas trees became popular and associated with Christmas itself, virtually all of these pagan worship practices in Europe were long dead. And
I don't know the origin. I'll check Urban Dictionary. See, Urban Dictionary might be better than Webster's. You know, and anyone want to vote on that? Webster's Dictionary versus Urban Dictionary?
Forgotten. There is no evidence of a direct link, and if the most we can connect is a parallel correlation, then that's pretty weak. Correlation does not equal causation, and along with trees, pagans...
Which, that statement is true in both history and in statistics, mathematics, and whatever other study you're doing. Very important rule.
Also had religious buildings, songs they sang, almsgiving, prayers. Some Egyptian superstitions also included the images of crosses and fish. By the same logic, we better get rid of all those things in modern Christianity.
Yeah, okay, so I was right, actually. What is it? Okay. All right, Leah said she needed to do something, but it's all right. 25 minutes. The video might be done in 25 minutes, but it's all right.
Christianity is.
But yeah, I always thought that fat meant cool. I don't know, like it's like, yo, that fit is fat, you know, or yo, man, you're looking fat today. Which now that could apply. That could be a double entendre if your friend just had like 8 different Big Macs. But you see, but also it could apply if they have like the new like Mark 8 Jordans. So both of them could apply. What is it?
Now, the problem we run into is that you can draw all sorts of parallels with things pagans did and do and practices we see in Christianity. But once again, correlation does not equal causation. And to draw the connection between a pagan root into a modern Christmas practice, we need to be able to draw a clear and definitive straight line. That just simply cannot be done with all the examples we see within modern Christmas practices. This also goes, by the way, for...
Yeah, again, I mostly know the crude version of it, which is when you sort of appeal to someone's sexual appeal, usually in their more gendered appendages. I'm trying really hard, guys. I'm trying really hard to keep it PG here. But, you know, pretty hot and tempting, or pretty hips and thighs. Thickness. Yeah. Enough of that.
Wreaths, mistletoe, and even Santa Claus. You might have a problem.
Stop. Charles, no. Those are definitely words.
With commercialization of all of these things, and I can understand that. But to try and then say that they're pagan is just a jump in logic that seems to...
See, yeah, you're right. Like, anytime that something goes wrong around Christmas time, just blame it. Dude, I mean, it's a pagan symbol anyway. You got your powers from Satan, right? You see, this is why we know you're manifesting, Charles. I mean, do you have a Christmas tree in your house? Because if you do, that Christmas tree is a portal to another, is a portal to hell, the dimension of hell, and the demons come out. It's like the gate of hell in Capernaum that Jesus was talking about on the mountain. So basically what I'm trying to say is you kind of cooked yourself by creating that Christmas tree. Yes, no Christmas, bud.
At best be...
I'm off topic now. I'm off topic. No, but it's still related to the, because look, we circled back around, right? We circled back around to it being about Christmas trees. So it works.
Silly to me. Now, some will grant that and simply say, well, they might not be pagan, but scripture clearly condemns such practices. I mean, look at Jeremiah 10, verses 2 to 4. This is...
Oh, yeah, he's going to deal with the exegesis now, which is good. I'll just read it. Do not learn the ways of the nations or be terrified by signs in the heavens, though the nations are terrified of them. For the practices of the people are worthless. They cut a tree out of the forest, which it doesn't say what kind of tree it is, and a craftsman shapes it with his chisel. They adorn it with silver and gold. They fasten it with a hammer and nails so it will not totter.
What the Lord says, do not learn the ways of the nations, or be terrified by signs in the heavens, though the nations are terrified by them. For the practices of the people are worthless. They cut a tree out of a forest, and a craftsman shapes it with his chisel. They adorn it with silver and gold. They fasten it with a hammer and nails, so it will not totter. The argument then is that this is God forbidding decorating a Christmas tree.
My problem, though, is that there's a few assumptions being made here. Because number one, it's that you have a Christmas tree being cut down. Usually in Christmas, you'll have the tree cut down, and if it's appropriate size tree, you put it in your house, or you'll build one artificially, right? And it's usually pretty intact. Like, it's usually the same tree. It's usually like pretty, just basically it's essentially the same Christmas tree. But it seems like they chisel it down. They break it away piece by piece. So it seems like they're taking this tree, which again, why there's no reason to assume it's a pine cone tree. There's no reason to assume it's an evergreen tree. But you take this tree and they chisel it down. They probably carve something out of it. Probably a pagan idolatrous symbol. Okay, not the tree itself. And they're adorning it with certain materials. And those are meant to, probably in that context, meant to describe their fortune. And they're nailing it down so that it won't be destroyed by the judgment. So in context, it's a very different thing going on. You can't compare them.
So doing so is a sin which Scripture and God condemns. The problem is that this verse, when placed in the context of what Jeremiah is actually talking about, completely debunks it. What Jeremiah is talking about is a craftsman who is cutting down a tree and carving a graven idol out of the wood. The very next...
Yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about. Right? They're not taking the tree and then just putting it just as is. No, they're taking the tree, they're cutting something. See, it literally says in the verse, they're chiseling it, right? That should tell you that it's not just a one and done kind of cutting down deal like you see with the regular Christmas tree.
Verse mockingly compares what is being done by these pagans with a scarecrow. In other words, just as a scarecrow.
And again, is anyone out here, is anyone out here that condemns Christmas? Are you going to also condemn scarecrows as pagan? Because once you do that, nothing is safe. Everything is pagan. I'm pagan. You're pagan. This water bottle, if I put leaves around it, I decorate it, that's pagan too. So, look, if scarecrows aren't even safe, what can be? What can be?
Crow is a mock representation of a person to scare away birds in a field, but cannot move, talk, or has no life in and of itself. Neither does the wooden idol being made by the craftsman. The verse specifically mocks these wooden figures' lack of ability to speak or walk. Why? Because they're being carved with mouths and feet, yet they're still a piece of lifeless wood. This wouldn't make any sense if what is being talked about in context looked...
Clip it, PV. Dude, again, I've been saying this so many times. You guys can just take anything I say and just clip it. Like, I say so many out-of-pocket, out-of-context statements, which aren't even better in context. Like, you could just take what I say and then just clip it and then share it, and then boom, you know, you make a clip out of that. You know? There's so many gold clips you could use.
Like a tree.
Oh, and hey, Quad.
And that's besides the point that it would make no sense for God to be telling the ancient Israelites to avoid making Christmas trees, which wouldn't be done for thousands of years in the future, and thus have no understandable application for Jeremiah's immediate audience. Many people in the comments...
Yeah, tell Super Layman to clip it. Clip my out of context video of me saying that I'm pagan. Okay, I'm pagan. You're pagan. That water bottle's pagan.
Section of my social media posts also very strongly argued that because the Bible never specifically says we should celebrate Jesus's birthday.
See, you guys were all like peaceful banana means PB means peaceful banana. No. Okay, it was actually standing for pagan banana. Okay, so next time I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna come with the devil horns. Okay, you're not gonna know what hit you.
Therefore, it is wrong. To this, I would say a few things. First, Jesus himself traveled to Jerusalem in John chapter...
Oh, sorry, I gotta rerun.
Also very strongly understandable application for Jeremiah's immediate audience. Many people in the comment section of my social media posts also very strongly argued that because the Bible never specifically says we should celebrate Jesus's birthday, therefore it is wrong. To this, I would say a few things.
You know, there's also a lot of things the Bible doesn't say that you shouldn't do, and yet doing it would still be wrong. Like, the Bible never says you shouldn't smoke weed until you're blackout, until you go high on acid, okay? The Bible never says that you should, the Bible never says that you shouldn't take your cousin for marriage, which we know from the Andrew Wilson debate. The Bible never says you shouldn't, but that doesn't mean it's not wrong. And similarly, the Bible can not mention that we should do something, and yet it can still be okay. It's just not listed. It's a conscience issue. That's why Paul said, Colossians 2, Romans 14, whatever day you celebrate it in your own mind. If you're going to celebrate it to the Lord, celebrate it to the Lord. Okay? Any new moon, any Sabbath day, any holiday, it literally doesn't matter what you celebrate, as long as you do it in praise of God. I enjoyed the portion. I watched Couldn't Save for the whole thing. You were doing well. Yeah, I as a side note, I think Layman did a stream yesterday about if you need to believe Jesus is God to be saved. I think I will say this. I commented on it with others. You could have done better. Don't worry. Don't get me wrong. You did win the debate. He's looking for that one verse theology, which, by the way, verses don't exist in the original. Okay, so that's a ridiculous statement. But he's looking for that one verse theology. He's not understanding narrative, right? So that already, and like the statements he made, like, oh, John 10, Jesus is just speaking on behalf of God, not that he is. That's, you're Unitarian, bro. You're a Muslim. You're a Muslim, dude. Okay? First of all, number one, asking for a statement that says, oh, believe that I am God in order to be saved. That's a Muslim argument. Like, that's like Muslims saying, if you don't tell me the one place where Jesus said, I am God, worship me, then Jesus is not God. You must repent. You must take shot. Like, that's a Muslim argument. And then second of all, saying that, oh, John 5 equal with God doesn't mean that he's God. That's a Unitarian argument. You're Unitarian, bro. You just don't want to admit it. Like that's an insane argument to make. Oh, John 1 doesn't say Jesus is God, but that's inferred. I don't I don't know what else to tell you, but okay.
First, Jesus himself traveled to Jerusalem in John chapter 10 to celebrate the Feast of Dedication, better known today as Hanukkah. This is a celebration.
That voice is off limits. No, I wasn't. No, wait, hold on. Wait, no. Don't clip it. Don't clip it. I didn't say that. No. No. No, but before like one of Toronto's people comes in and says they're being racist. No. That wasn't me mocking Toronto. That was me mocking a Muslim who I tried my best to do an Arabian accent, but I couldn't do it. But don't get me wrong, I'm not mocking Toronto being Indian. That's not. I wasn't trying to do that. But it did sound like that, I will say.
That came from the 2nd century BC, commemorating the recovery of Jerusalem and subsequent dedication of the Second Temple at the beginning of the Maccabean Revolt. This is not a celebration the Bible says for God's people to do. It comes from the time between the last book of the Old Testament, Malachi, and the first book of the New Testament, the Gospel of Matthew. Yet Jesus has no problem traveling to Jerusalem to celebrate this particular event. Despite it not being commanded in Scripture, it is fully consistent with Scripture. Why wouldn't you make a celebration out of an event that represented God's work in the world and the preservation and redemption of his people?
Yeah, I mean, you do that with the Hanukkah, Feast of Tabernacles. That was not originally in the Torah, right? But they created that. Even Jesus celebrated Hanukkah. They created that holiday out of commemoration for the Maccabean revolt around the time of I forget what his name was, but it was like a precursor to the Antichrist. Dang, I forgot his name. But basically, yeah, I honestly, yeah. An American Dominican pretending to be a Muslim mistaken for being a Canadian Indian Christian. That oh man. No, that's yeah, and Antichias Epiphanes. Yeah, I forgot his name. Yeah, but they created Hanukkah because of that. Jesus celebrated Hanukkah. It's not in the Torah. It's not in the Torah. People made it up. Didn't make it up, but they created the holiday, right? That it's not automatically wrong to do just because it's not in the original Tanakh or the New Testament, you know? Diversity is our strength.
In a very similar way, why wouldn't we celebrate the incarnation and the birth of Christ?
Yeah, I mean, I would, and again, I like the fact, just conveniently, that it takes place at the end of the year. I it's just a personal preference. I think that it makes sense just on a publicity level. I think that there are people that have gotten, like, dude, imagine this. There's people that have gotten saved on a Christmas night listening to a sermon. Like that, dude, how baller is that? Like, you go to a church because your friend told you, you hear this powerful sermon about Jesus's death, his birth, his life, his ministry, his death, burial, resurrection, and you believe in him. Like, I mean, that on a Christmas night, it's snowing outside too. It's probably like in somewhere in like Pennsylvania or something, or in London. There's times like that, definitely. And so I think that it's just like, to me, it's just aesthetically appealing. It's culturally appealing, and it's just a nice way to end the year. There's no problem with that.
There are, of course, so many other things I could talk about related to Christmas, but let me just wrap up with a few particular Comments. Once again, there are no straight lines drawn from pagan practices to modern Christmas celebrations. Those just aren't there. At best, we can draw correlations to a handful of things pagans did, but no causation that these things impacted or were directly copied by Christians in the development of Christmas. The same sort of methodology is often employed for Jesus mythicists when they try to draw connections between things like ancient deity figures and what Jesus did. And I wrote connections between is often
hold on
in the development of Christmas. The same sort of methodology is often
people go to Krishna, born of a virgin, perform miracles, resurrected. And then there's Attis, there's Mithra, what was it? Osiris?
In the development of Christmas. The same sort of methodology is
Horus,
often employed
Mithra
for Jesus mythicists when they try to draw connections between things like ancient deity figures and what Jesus...
Dionysus. Yeah, again, there's a lot of parallels people try to draw. The problem, of course, is that they're just not always dry. I remember with the story of Osiris, people try to say, oh, that's Jesus, right? That's Jesus. Here's the story of Osiris. The story of Osiris, or I think it's Osiris, is you have he's not born of a virgin. He's not born of a virgin. He's born of a rock. Okay, he's born of a rock, at least in one telling of the story. And so he doesn't have a father or mother. So I guess you could call that a virgin birth. And then he dies, quote unquote. In reality, his body is completely torn apart, and then it's put back together again. And he doesn't resurrect. He only becomes the overtaker or the lord of the underworld, right? Not really much of a resurrection in that kind of sense. And so this whole thing, and no sacrificial death mentioned, no death for sins, no propitiation. There's so many elements that are just not there that it's just not really fair to say, oh, this is this is Jesus. It's dude, there's so many. If you look into all of these stories, Mithra, Attis, Horus, whatever, they just don't line up with the biblical Jesus. And it's just not true. Just do the research for yourself, dude. Don't just believe everything on the internet.
Did. And ironically, this is exactly what some people in my social media comment section did do. Unfortunately, whether we're talking about the stories of Jesus in the Gospels or the traditions of modern Christmas, there really isn't any credibility between Nimrod, Tammuz, Horus, Attis, or anyone else.
I want to make sure that the video is at least good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's at least good.
That was an ancient deity figure. Those are at best silly parallels that could apply to anyone or anything, and at worst, they're simply made up from thin air. Secondly, the incarnation and the birth of Christ is, along with Jesus' death and resurrection, the most awesome event in all of human history. Why wouldn't we want to carve out some specific time to celebrate such an amazing event? Why wouldn't we purposefully set aside a chunk of time, like Advent, to build up to the expectation of our coming Savior?
Yeah, I mean, for instance, it's interesting because when you sing Christmas carols, one of those pagan songs the people talked about, one of those songs is called O Come, Emmanuel, which is about the second coming of Jesus. And it actually starts off, it says, O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive is. So literally, in the very beginning of it, it talks about the future restoration and salvation of Israel when he ransoms captive Israel from her enemies. Okay? So to me, I think that you clearly see that Christmas is all about it talks about the first coming, no doubt, in some ways, but it ultimately points to the second coming. And I think that's what we ought to also celebrate in Christmas. The whole life story of Jesus.
Finally, let's take a cue from Paul when he writes to the church in Corinth concerning those who were worried about eating meat sacrificed to idols. So then, about eating food sacrificed to idols, we know that an idol is nothing at all in the world and that there is no God but one. For even though there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, as indeed there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is but one God, the Father, from whom all things came, and for whom we live, and there is but one Lord Jesus Christ, through whom all things came and through whom we live.
Yeah, I mean, to me, first of all, this verse actually proves the deity of Christ. Because, yeah, there's one God, the Father, but there's also one Lord. So Jesus is still the Lord and God. And God is still God. The Father is still God and the Lord. Pretty clear. But it's like, the point is that we know that, let's say Christmas had pagan origins, which I don't believe that's true. But let's say Christmas had pagan origins. Let's say every time I get my trees, I'm bowing down to the image of the beast, I guess, right? Something like that. It's like, well, you know what I mean? Like, but I don't believe that it's an actual real thing. I don't believe it's an actual God. I don't believe it's an actual Lord. I don't believe anything within it. And so even if I'm participating in this food sacrificed to idols, even if I'm participating in the gifts sacrificed to the tree, that doesn't mean that I actually believe anything is actually sacrificed. Look, if someone is going to give me a PS5 and it was put under an idol tree, look, I'm taking the PS5. I don't know about you, but I'm taking the PS5. I'm not like, oh, I can't take the PS5, can't take the 3090 because it came from the pagan tree. No, I'm taking that gift, dude. You know? So, you know, be thankful. Be thankful.
God made everything good, and just because someone tries to corrupt and twist something like a cut of meat, or for that matter, a pine tree, it doesn't mean that they're successful. Just because something has a meaning to a pagan does not mean that is then also how God sees it. And at the end of the day, I would never advise someone to go against their conscience.
Yeah, this is also the important part to get from it. That's what I basically said. If you don't want to take the 3090 PC under the Christmas tree because it goes against your conscience, hey, don't take the 3090. Don't take the gaming chair. Don't take the GTA 6 released early, okay? I'll take it, but you can give it to me. But look, the point is, don't celebrate Christmas if it goes against your conscience. If your family doesn't like it because you think it's pagan, look, you don't have a good reason to believe that. But don't celebrate it, right? Simple as that. Whatever you do, you have to be persuaded in your own mind regarding these sort of issues. So I think that Paul is absolutely relevant here.
You truly believe that modern Christmas practices are something you don't want to be part of, that's fine. I have no problem with that. And the purpose of this type of video is not to coerce anybody who feels uneasy about this holiday or any other celebration that I like to do. This video is simply to point out that we are followers of the truth, and I'm not a brain scientist or any other type of scientist for that matter.
I'm a brain scientist, this guy's
but the truth of the matter is that modern Christmas traditions, you can't draw a straight line.
Is this audio like going off the walls here, huh?
From pagan practices to it. Let's remember what Paul writes in Colossians 1:16. Therefore, do not let any
Colossians 2:16. He didn't know the verse. He didn't know the verse. All right.
anyone judge you by what you eat or drink, or with regard to a religious festival, a new moon celebration, or a Sabbath day.
Which, first of all, this verse proves you don't have to keep the Sabbath, right? But look, whatever you eat, whatever you drink, look, you can eat whatever you want. You can drink. Now, of course, don't let it be unhealthy for you, but you can drink whatever you want. You can celebrate whatever festival you want. You want to celebrate Christmas? You don't want to celebrate. You want to celebrate? Look, I think that 4th of July is more pagan than I think it's more pagan than Christmas. Not gonna lie. Now, of course, I have my reasons for that. If you want to know why, you can ask. But the point is, and you know, I can make a video on like on 4th of July, why 4th of July is pagan. But you know, but but basically, whatever you think, whatever holiday you think is fine, whatever new moon you want to celebrate the new moon every month, go for that. That's dumb, but you can do that. It's the point is that you praise and glorify God through it, and you'll have obviously a chance to give the gospel.
And if you want to learn more about these types of things, about church history, theology, and other cool stuff about the Bible, then check out.
And people be telling me not to drink my pee. Like, bro, Paul said it's cool. Hey, I mean, look, if you're in a survival situation and you're like Bear Grylls and the water is just too salty for you and you don't have a boiling pot and you also like can't reuse the water again and again. If you're just in that isolated, particular, specific, hyper, unrealistic situation, if you manage to get in that, you might need to drink your pee. Okay, so mark my words here. Don't quote me on this, but sometimes, but sometimes that's okay.
Out the rest of my videos and content on my channel. Merry Christmas.
Dude, that was epic. That was epic, dude. All right, so Michael Jones helped with this. Seems wasteful just to throw it out. Hey, my mama said you never let good food go to waste. Okay? So take from that what you will. I can't do this. I can't do it. It's terrible. But now we're gonna go to our second video, right? The shocking truth about Christmas. I don't even know if I'll be able to finish this.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays, Mr. Jones. Michael Jones. Right? How dare you?
I've always wanted to say that in a church, just to see if anybody would leave. But before that happens, let me correct myself. Merry Christmas, everyone. Say that in a church. Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah, he said happy holidays. Yep, I'm gonna have to leave. No, we can't just leave yet. Look, he made a mistake. We all make those kinds of mistakes sometimes, but it's all right. Nah, Smokey, Christmas is pagan because the tree has 33 stars. That means the Masons created. Dude. The Freemasons are behind Christmas. Dude, I've never heard this one before. The Freemasons are behind Christmas. You know who's actually behind Christmas? The Jews. The Jews are behind Christmas. I knew it all along, right? They were behind the Charlie Kirk fake death, okay? And they're behind, and they were behind the corn industry. They're behind VR Grace, and they're behind Christmas, okay? I should have known it was the Jews, man. I can't.
I've always wanted to say that in a church, just to see if anybody would leave. But before that happens, let me correct myself. Merry Christmas, everyone. And I hope you're all having a great one.
Just in case anyone out there celebrates Hanukkah. What is it? Okay.
Now, if you're like me, when Christmas rolls around, you probably do a little bit of shopping, spend time with family, go to church, and a little extra because it is Jesus' birthday. But you're probably going to run into a friend or a relative that's got a glee in their eye and a smirk on their face. they're going to come up to you and go, it's really a pagan.
It's actually that the Freemasons invented Christmas. Actually, Quad, if you didn't know, the Jesuits were behind Christmas. So you're gonna have to get rid of your candles, get rid of your milk and cookies, get rid of your Christmas tree, get rid of the decorations outside. Right? I know for a fact that you have the Santa climbing into the chimney decorate. I know you have that because I have that decoration. Okay. Okay. Oh wait. What is it? Leah wants to open her camera, right? Leah wants to open her camera. So if she wants to, she could have her camera open, and then she can say hi.
Pagan holiday. You're welcome.
And then they just leave. It's like that family member that like they just walk up inside and they just yell while like Happy Thanksgiving is going on. What is it? The Pilgrims slaughtered thousands of Indians. And then they just bolt, and then you just get out of there. It's just like the confidence required. You know what I mean? The confidence required.
How many of you?
Oh wait, Leah's there. Hey, you got your camera on, right? So now you can say hi to the audience again. What is it? Is your mic on, Leah?
Sorry. Hi, everyone. Hello.
There's a lot of music coming in the background. So. Oh, really nice. Yeah. If I think in the Philippines, a lot of people do Christmas carols there. Yeah. Not as much here in the U.S. Unfortunately. Yeah, dude. I mean, Quad, it's the same for me. Look, I wish that the Jews invented Christmas. Look, I'm gonna purport that theory around. I'm gonna spread it on 4chan. I'm gonna spread it on an 8chan. I'm gonna spread it on Twitter. I'm just gonna say baselessly the Jews invented Christmas and just be done with it. And then you'd be like, wait, why would the Jews invent a holiday for Christians even though they don't believe Jesus is the Messiah? And they're like, well, it's so that they could influence the world by selling their products, right? Their Jew products on Christmas. Okay, I mean, look, you got to think ahead of the game here. You got to think ahead of the game. I wish I could save some money too.
Have had someone in your life do that to you at least some point to try to tell you, it's really pagan. Typically, it's innocent.
That ain't innocent. We all know that family member ain't innocent. Okay, probably like some new age or atheist or whatever, man. Like that. We both know that ain't innocent. We both know that. What is it? Hold on. How the heck? Custom. Change it. Normal. How do I make it faster? Oh wait, it doesn't go up. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Now and again, you get one of those ultra fundamentalist people that are like, you may celebrate that pagan holiday, but I want to be extra holy for God, so I abstain entirely. I don't want to accidentally worship a pagan idol, your Christmas tree, guys. Now, I'm going to show you today, there is not a scrap of evidence.
Dude, that's the 4D Hebrew chess, right? The 4D chess is that the Jews invented a holiday for a man they don't even believe in. I wish I could think of that. I wish I could think. I'm not as smart as the Jews. I don't have that IQ, that 140 IQ Bible engineer degree. Okay, so I guess we'll never know.
Christmas is pagan. And that's not coming from me, that's coming from historians like Ronald Hutton, Thomas Schmidt, Thomas Taylor, Stephen Hidgmans, Tanya Gulovich. Before I get there, let's just say for the sake of argument, it is a pagan holiday. Originally, that's what it was, and the early Christians were like, you know what, we're gonna take over this holiday and use it for good. I get a lot of really fundamentalist Christians sometimes come say, you know, you can't do that because God hates anything that's pagan. And they'll sometimes use this passage from Deuteronomy. When the Lord your God cuts off before you the nations whom you go into dispossess and dispossesses them and dwell in their land, take care that you do not ensnare to follow them after they have been destroyed before you, and that you do not inquire about their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? That I may do the same. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, for every abominable thing that the Lord hates, they have done for their gods. So they'll say, see?
So there's a few things to note here. Number one, the kind of person who quotes this text is probably not a dispensationalist, right? So, because they're taking a text about Israel going into the land of Canaan, and they're applying it to the church. To me, that doesn't make sense. But it's whatever. Because my problem is that, look, the church is not Israel. The church is not a theocracy. The church is not going into land. The church is not this same entity. So you shouldn't take laws about Israel, apply them to the church, especially in light of 1 Corinthians 8 and Colossians chapter 2. You just can't do it. Ye old mushy hermeneutic. Ye old allegorical hermeneutics. Mariah Carey is a Christmas. Oh. All right.
God hates whatever pagans do. Don't do that. Checkmate Christmas. Again, let's use a little reason here. Did God command Israel to sacrifice animals before him? Yes. Pagan nations.
Mariah Carey is a Christmas queen, and Mike Johns is the Christmas king. See, as we all knew, there's only... I mean, look, we all know Mariah Carey is the queen of Christmas. Like, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. And of course, Inspiring Philosophy is also pretty good. But who's like the pop star king of Christmas? You know? I mean, Michael Jackson was the king of pop. There's no doubt about it. Bruno Mars might be getting up there, right? But who is the actual king of Christmas in the pop world? You know?
Sacrificed animals to their gods. Did God command Israel to build a temple? Pagans built temples. Do pagans breathe air? Well, God said we can breathe air. So,
okay, that one, I don't like that objection because that's sort of a duh moment. Like, duh. It's talking about how you serve their gods, right? So if I believed in that ridiculous hermeneutic, I'd say, look, Michael Jones, obviously it's not talking about everything pagans do as just a normal human being you're not allowed to do. But in the way that they serve their gods, you're not allowed to do, right? So I would say that. And of course, again, the primary assumption is that the church is Israel and the church is under the Mosaic law, right? That's the main assumption. But that's also a problem with that argument.
So maybe it doesn't mean everything, and it does seem to imply you can't do every abominable practice. Things like burning your sons and daughters in fire to their gods. In fact, the symbol of Christianity technically used to be a Roman torture device used by pagans, and now it's a symbol of victory. Now, I get some Christians that'll be like, well, you can't even use the cross. That's also a pagan symbol. We got to reject that.
That's wild to me. Saying that the cross is a pagan symbol, again, that's Mike Sampat levels of you're making an idol out of the cross. Like, Mike Sampat is the type of guy to make this argument. It's like, you're making an idol out of the cross because the cross was used in Egyptian pagan idols, and so therefore you're not allowed to believe in the cross. When Paul said in Galatians chapter 6 that I boast in nothing except the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, he actually sinned there. right? He actually was an idolater. That's why Paul in Romans 7 says that he struggles with sin. The sin he's struggling with is making an idol out of the cross. He can't help but make an idol out of the cross, which is why he doesn't celebrate Christmas. Boom, you're debunked. Easy pickings. Okay? Too easy. Do the other voice. Dude, someone's gonna get mad at this. You're making an idol out of the cross? You cannot do that. The Egyptians did that beforehand. You cannot make an idol of the cross. That's why Paul was an idolater in Galatians chapter 6. And now Paul is in hell. I can't.
Well, let me go one step further. Let me read from Acts. Paul tells the Athenians, for in him we live and move and have our being, and even as some of your own poets have said, for we are indeed his offspring. Now, if you don't know, Paul is actually quoting pagans, Epimenides and Aratus. Aratus was a Stoic philosopher and a pantheist. And Paul says his words, well, I'm going to use those to talk about the God of Israel. So right there, we see in Scripture, God takes something that a pagan meant for evil, he uses it for good. He reclaims it. You meant this to talk about your pantheist Stoic God? Well, now it's about me. And this is what we tend to get in Scripture if you read it. Just because a pagan may have used something for evil in the past, that doesn't mean it is now evil or wrong for us. We see this very clearly in 1 Corinthians 8. Paul here is talking about meat that may have been sacrificed to an idol, and now it's being sold at a market. And he's like, who cares?
Oh, yeah, this is the exact same passage. This is the exact same passage. Why do I click on the vertical stream? Yeah, dude, hold on. Okay, hold on. Okay, yeah. So, what is it? Okay, hold on. Is Layman there? If Layman is there, right, and you're available, then Leah is in the backstage. Again, I wanted to at least be able to be the admin, but it's too complicated. Yeah, if you're there, you could just let Leah back up on the stage, right, while I'm streaming whenever available, because she accidentally clicked something. Oh man. Yeah, I by the way, I tried my other computer. It still didn't work. I don't know why.
Like, just because we know there's only one God, and guess what? He made all the meat. So he's the one who's really in control. As long as you're not going to cause your brother to stumble in some way, there's nothing to abstain from. Just because a pagan may have, honored it or dedicated it to Zeus, that doesn't mean it's now wrong for you. Just because a pagan used something in the past, that doesn't mean it's wrong for Christians in the present. And I'm going to give you one of my favorite verses, 1 Corinthians 15. For he must reign until he has put all enemies under his feet, and the last enemy to be destroyed is death. Okay? Who's reigning? Zeus?
So this argument would work if we were in the millennium, right? Good thing. Hold on. Is the stream actually working? Okay.
Let me read from Acts.
Okay, yeah, I don't know why. But yeah, basically, what is it? Hold on. I don't know is it still working? Yeah, I just want to make Oh, Leah's already back. Yeah, dang. All right, she's already back, guys. Don't worry, right? It was a brief interlude. All right. But yeah, basically, that's the issue. This would work. He's a post-millennial, by the way. So this argument would work if we were in the millennium, but it doesn't work because he hasn't reigned yet, because he hasn't come back yet, right? He hasn't come on his throne, and he hasn't sat on his glorious throne with the Davidic throne. So I don't think that this verse really applies now, but I like the attempt. Yeah, post mill is coming. Post mill, there's so many ways to debunk post mill. It's insane. So many ways.
Ra, Marduk, the pine tree god? No. Jesus is reigning, and he is putting all things under his feet. Guess what? That includes pine trees, mistletoe, Easter eggs, bunnies, you name it. Everything can be used to honor our God. And he did the same thing, as I pointed out, in Acts 17. But wait, the fundamentalists is ready for this. They got a passage they want to go to. And I'm sure you probably have heard this.
Jeremiah 10. Guys, in your mind, it's Jeremiah 10, isn't it? It's Jeremiah 10. It's Jeremiah 10. It's Jeremiah 10.
Jeremiah 10.
Oh my gosh, I'm too good. Look, I'm too good at knowing that. Now, of course, there's only like 2 verses at best against that you could use against Christmas, but yeah.
Learn not the ways of the nation, nor be dismayed at the signs of the heaven, because for the custom of the people are vanity. A tree from the forest is cut down and worked with an axe by the hands of a craftsman. They decorate it with silver and gold. They fasten it with a hammer and nails. Check.
The worked with an axe, I don't think is a good translation, because the worked with an axe implies like, oh, you're taking the tree, you're cutting it down. But again, the imagery is a craftsman, someone who's chiseling it out, someone who's working with it. God is comparing that to taking a tree and decorating it. Okay, that's how ridiculous it is. So this verse, as I said and Westhoff said, clearly is not referring to Christmas, right? Bro, who carves their Christmas tree? Like, that's what I mean. You look, at best, you like take off the stump part of it and then you put it in your house, or you put it on a stand or whatever. You don't actually carve. Who carves a Christmas tree? You know, that ain't even a Christmas tree. That's a Christmas log. Okay.
Mate, God says you cannot decorate trees with silver and gold.
Boom. Boom. Destroyed. Epically annihilated. Can't get around that verse.
Is that really what this passage is saying? Do you think ancient Canaanites had Christmas trees? Let's be a little reasonable here. Every scholar who has written on Jeremiah 10, and I mean every scholar who has written a commentary, mentioned it, will tell you this is not about decorating trees. It's about making an idol.
Yeah, I would say, well, see, okay, the fundamentalist is probably KJVO. So I'm going to read it from the KJVO, right? I'm going to briefly go over there, and we're going to see, is it actually talking about that, right? In the KJVO. So we're going to go to, what is it? So I usually use the NASB. Jeremiah 10, 2-4, right? And we're going to go into the K is up there, right? Yeah, King James, authorized King James, because we want to make sure that we get the authentic argument, right? It says, oh, my brothers and sisters, what the heck? No, start it. All right, Jeremiah 10, King James. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the sign of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, and work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. Dude, it says they cut the tree out of the forest, and they work it with the workmen, and they use an axe, just like Christmas. Bro, they deck it. Dude, it says they deck it. Like, deck the halls. Well, you're going to deck hell if you don't repent of your Christmas jolly. Okay, they deck it with silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and hammers, that it move not. You're cooked. You're cooked. Is that what it's saying? Is that what it's actually saying? I can't do this anymore. I can't do KJVO anymore.
A craftsman cuts down wood. They fashion it with their hands, and then they decorate it with silver and gold. It's an idol. Their crafting field. you see an idol, typically has legs and feet, and it has a mouth. Again, there is not one scholar who says Jeremiah 10 is about Christmas trees. The only people who say that are laymen on the internet who have not done research.
Oh, wait, layman. You were referenced. Layman on the internet. Why are you getting cooked, layman? Okay, consistently. You got cooked in the last debate. You're getting cooked by Mike Jones 3 years ago, right? It's like the cycle repeats itself.
Where did the Christmas tree come from, though? Let's answer this question. Because now let's see if it really does go back to paganism. No. Here's a historian. She says,
Tell him to formally debate free grace. Honestly, I don't know about Mike Jones. Like, the problem I have, this is just a side problem. The problem I have with a lot of these apologists, with a lot of these anti-Muslim apologists, with a lot of these just general Christian, you never know fully what their doctrinal. Like some of them lean lordship. Like William Lane Craig said, it's not enough to believe in the gospel, like, explicitly. He said you also must submit to Jesus. So he that's pretty bad. And but people like God Logic believes you can lose your salvation. People like but people like Mike Jones, he believes in eternal security. Seems like it. He believes in faith alone. He's a Protestant. So, I would argue, I don't actually know what the beliefs of these people are. I wish I did. I wish I knew the beliefs better of these apologists, because they never go into it. Like, I want to just have a sit down and be like, hey, inspiring philosophy. What are your beliefs on salvation? What exactly is your belief? Are you free grace? Have you heard of it? Because I want to be able to, with the people I'm watching, I want to know, hey, do they preach the right gospel? Testifies old earth and progress. Yeah, that's my problem. Their gotcha methods are not proper hermeneutics. Right? Exactly.
1861, an ordinance posted in Alsace declared that each burgh was allowed only one Christmas tree, and that his tree could be no more than 8 shoes in height. This is the first mention of Christmas trees in the historical record that we have. 1561. Do you think Canaanite paganism was running around Alsace, France at this point? Probably not.
Hey, you never know, man. Hey, if the Jews weren't lost, how do we know the pagans weren't lost? How do we know the Canaanites weren't lost? Think about that.
We're not really sure where the Christmas tree came from, but from what I can gather, the most likely explanation that Tanya Gulovich talks about is it actually is entirely Christian in origin. You see, in the Middle Ages, they like to do a lot of plays. They didn't have YouTube or TikTok, so they did plays. And December 24th was the feast day of Adam and Eve. And they would celebrate it with an Adam and Eve play. Now, if you've ever been to Europe on December 24th, you'll notice there's not a lot of trees available, but there are pine trees available. So they would gather a pine tree, decorate it with apples, and apples, by the way, are the earliest form of ornaments.
Which, by the way, that must stink in order after you clean it up. Like, imagine you have a fruit, you just get like a rotten apple, you just decorate it around a tree, and then like you just got to throw everything out. Dude, you're wasting perfectly good apples there, So I don't appreciate that. Okay, especially after we established that you can. I'm not even gonna bring that one up to clip.
And they would perform the Adam and Eve play. And then after, you don't waste food in Middle Ages in Europe, so people would probably gather around and eat the apples off of the paradise tree.
They're gathering around. They're gathering around. And they're eating the flesh of the tree just like an idol. It's paganism. Paganism!
As it was called. So, most historians that have written on this topic will say the most likely explanation is Christmas trees morphed from paradise trees used in Adam and Eve plays on December 24th. Very innocent origin, no paganism, regardless. But what about the infamous date of December 25th? And there is the man himself, the evil Emperor Constantine, who is used in every Hollywood movie as the guy who ruined everything.
Constantine ruined everything. Constantine ruined the Christianity. Constantine introduced Roman Catholicism. Think about that for a second. Okay? Kind of cooked.
As you know, the myth is, well, December 25th was a pagan holiday, and the Christians decided to hijack it under Constantine, and they Christianized it. They said, well, this was, originally a celebration of the sun god, but now we're going to use it to honor Jesus Christ, the Son of God.
Wait, hold on. That sounds kind of dumb, though, because the word son and the word son in English are homophones. They have similar sounding pronunciation, but like in Greek or Latin, that wouldn't be like obvious. Like there's a different word for son, huios, and a different word for son. So I don't really, that sounds dumb. They're debating this topic right now. Wait, do I? Do you what, Matthew? Do you what? Also, hey, what's up?
Sounds plausible on the surface, I'll say. Just one problem. There's no evidence of it. None whatsoever. This is a guy called Ronald Hutton. Now, he is not a Christian. I think he describes himself more as like an agnostic, druid, pagan type person in Britain. Okay?
See, that's my key source of information. Gnostic, druid, pagans in Great Britain. See, if I had a nickel for every Gnostic, druid, pagan that wrote about the origins of Christmas, while also celebrating Christmas, I'd have at least one nickel. But it's weird that it happened once.
So he doesn't actually even care. But he says the official calendar of Julius Caesar marked the solstice. That's December 25th.
That sounds like...
According to the Julian calendar. The traditional pagan Roman calendar had left this period as a quiet and mysterious one, and flanked it instead with a festival of preparation and one of completion. Former was the Feast of Saturn, the Saturnalia, in the days after December 17th. And the latter, the New Year feast, from the 1st to the 3rd of January.
Dude, what? We never celebrate, like, we always celebrate January 1st, but, like, why do we never have entire feasts for a week? Think about that. Like, I kind of miss that, though. Like, we used to have weddings feasts that lasted a week. Like, they went all out, you know? They used to have, like, entire feasts that lasted 3 days. We have one for, like, an evening from, like, 6 p.m. to maybe 12 at best. Okay? I want to bring that back. Right? Do you think the holiday spirit points to Christ, or am I doing too much thinking this way? Well, the holiday spirit is like your joyful spirit means attitude, right? So it's like your joyful attitude about Christmas, about this time of year where there's giving, receiving, grace associated with it. So I think that it points to Christ in one way. But I think ultimately, you know, you do need to hear the gospel. That's why I talked about that aesthetic before. I don't think you were here, but it talks about that aesthetic before. So yeah, with like you have a guy who gets saved while hearing a sermon on Christmas night.
So he says, if you look at the early Roman calendars prior to Constantine, they don't mention any holiday on December 25th. None. There was no big winter solstice celebration as we've been told. The earliest source that will mention a pagan festival on December 25th is something called the Philocalian calendar, which dates to the year 354 AD. Now, if you know, that's actually post-Emperor Constantine. And what a lot of historians will note is that maybe, because the Christians were celebrating Christmas as far back as mid-200s on December 25th, that maybe when Constantine took power, the pagans needed their own celebration on December 25th. So they put a sun celebration on that day after Constantine.
Yeah, I think this makes probably the most sense of the historical data. Wes Huff mentioned it as well. They probably, did work a lot more work on this stuff. But it doesn't make sense to me that you have Christians are commanded in the Bible to not be like the world, to not care, right? To work quietly with your hands and not start a ruckus. They're not out here trying to start revolutions and stuff, you know? And so I don't think that the Christians here are stealing from another holiday. Look, they don't care what the pagans practice. They really don't care. I don't think the Christians at this time are practicing in 4th century AD what pagans are practicing. Okay? To me, it doesn't really it doesn't make sense why they would do that. So it just makes the most sense that probably what happened is that they just simply the pagans got it from the Christians. I mean, that makes more sense.
Because it doesn't show up in any earlier calendars that the Romans had. So there's no reason to think that they had that date and Christians stole it. Well, what about if we go further north? We all know about the story of Yule. Yes, Yule. Christians took this Norse holiday of Yule and they turned it into Christmas. Well, this guy is an Icelandic chronicler, historian, lived about 1,000 years ago or so. He says King Haakon, who is of Norway, when he was confirmed as a Christian when he arrived, he had established in the laws that Yule celebration was to take place the same time as it was the custom of the Christians. Guess what that means? Yule could not have been on December 25th prior to King Haakon the Good.
You know what's interesting though? Because you have a lot of Norse Vikings who were actually legit Christians. Now, of course, I don't know their theology. I don't know how well developed it was, but there were a lot of Christians in that Norwegian Netherland region that actually were Christians. People say that different apostles went up there. I don't know how accurate that is, but the point is it's spread up there when the Vikings were around. So you got a lot of Viking Christians.
That means it was different time of the year prior to this. So, why do we celebrate Christmas on December 25th? It's not for paganism. Why? Well, the answer is quite simple. Early Christians were doing their own calculations. In the early church, there was this belief that a prophet should die on the same day he was conceived. And they were convinced Jesus died on March 25th. Count forward 9 months. You get December 25th.
Yeah, this is most likely the origins of the day. Again, I don't know how common it is. I don't know how legit it is. It's never referenced. Dude, if that was referenced in the Old Testament, that'd be kind of baller. But I don't think it can work. Again, I like this dating of Christmas, but honestly, it could be at any time. It's probably in the spring that he was born, which is perfectly fine. You know, I want my year to end with Christ.
Pretty simple. Now, even if there was a pagan holiday on December 25th, that would not mean that Christians put Jesus' birthday on that date because of paganism. They were doing their own calculations. And it's kind of ironic because pagans had a lot of gods, a lot of festivals, celebrate those gods. Christians just happened to pick a date there wasn't one on. Well, let's talk about Santa Claus now. Everyone knows Santa is a revamped old pagan deity like Odin.
Dude, I don't know how many Greek or Norse or Roman gods there are with beards, but you could say Santa is Zeus. Santa is Odin. Santa is Jupiter. Santa, like, dude, the truth is Santa's a big fat guy with a beard. That probably more likely came from Coca-Cola, if I'm going to be honest. It's more likely that Santa came from Coca-Cola than it did from Odin. To me, that just sounds ridiculous. Like, it's like, bro, they both got red. Like again, this is the mind. This is the mind of the KGVO people. Oh, bro, it has red. He has red clothes, and Santa has some red clothes mixed in, and he has a white beard, and this guy has a white beard, and that could be a sword. Who knows? Like, dude, this is the mind of KJVO. Santa's blood. Yeah, this is the original blood versus Crips. Yeah, Santa versus the Grinch is the blood versus the Crips.
That correct? No, that is not correct. Santa is, as you would expect, Saint Nicholas. I can't believe I still have to even point this out to people online. These are some of the earliest depictions of Santa Claus. Here's the story. You get this in places like the Dictionary of English Folklore, Encyclopedia of Christmas and New Year's. In the 1800s, Christmas had become this kind of drunken celebration, and there were people in the city of New York who wanted to make it a more family-centered holiday. Well, the feast of St. Nicholas was earlier in the month of December, so they said, he was a gift-giving saint. He gave gifts to children. Why don't we sort of take him, move the saint to December 25th, and sort of revamp Christmas? So he was redressed, remade in the traditional attire of a Dutchman from that period, a big red suit. Dutchmen in New York would wear big red suits. So Santa Claus started to be depicting that way. And Dutch immigrants really still venerated and loved St. Nicholas even after the Protestant Reformation. So this is how it all sort of got started. Dutch immigrants in New York in the 1800s, revamping St. Nicholas into Santa Claus. Then,
yeah, and the Saint Nick story, I don't think is entirely accurate. I think like Saint Nick was said to be taking presents to orphans on Christmas night, which again would have already been celebrated at this time by the Christians. But again, we don't know how accurate these stories are because they are legends, right? And that's usually how all of this stuff develops. The thing with the Christmas tree, like Santa plus the Christmas tree, you get in the Grinch, you get in other stuff. All of these elements, they're not pagan. They're just a bunch of different myths in Christian history, a bunch of miscalculations, a bunch of other celebrations being tied in that are, again, Christian in origin. So when you take all of this into account, it's just, there's no reason to believe that it's pagan.
he was exported around the world. He became a phenomenon. In 1927, a Finnish radio broadcaster named Markus Radio decided, I'm going to take this Santa Claus, I'm going to rebrand him as Joulupukki, which is a pagan deity. So, Santa Claus is entirely Christian in origin, and as he got exported around the world, he then started blending with pagan stuff in places like Finland and Norway. But he originally, no, St. Nicholas. It does not go back to paganism. Paganism was added in less than 100 years ago at this point. Let's do a hard one now. We'll do a hard one. You think I can take it? Yule logs. Yule is in the name. Checkmate, Christians.
Boom. Dude, again, that's that KJVO level exegesis. It says Yule log, and Yule is in the name, and Yule is a Norse holiday around Christmas time. So therefore, Christmas is pagan. Dude, people will find any excuse to say Christmas is pagan. People will say, oh, bro, Jesus Christ, actually, when he was like between 12 and 33, he actually went to India to study like Indian gods and Buddhism and New Age practices. And then when he came back, he was okay, that's more like Gnosticism. But the truth is, people will make anything, say anything to make Christmas pagan. Dude, it's really, I think it might be a demonic, it might be spiritual blindness. It might be a demonic attack, you know?
How does that not go back to paganism? All right? Challenge accepted. Let's quote some scholars. The word Yule in various spellings means a loosely defined midwinter period, not a single day, in the early languages of most Germanic and Scandinavian countries. There was a man at one time named Sir Henry Yule. Yule does not necessarily mean the pagan.
Yo, I just dropped a Yule log. My enemies are blinded by the Yule fog. I'm out here walking my Yule dog, okay? And then I'm going to go meet Snoop Dogg, okay?
holiday of Yule.
You know, we're going to play basketball. We're going to jump like a frog. Okay, enough of that. Enough of that.
It just basically means midwinter period. Now, Yule logs actually are an English custom. The first mention we have of any sort of special log being burned around Christmas, it comes from 1648 in Robert Herrick's poetry.
I did take the view that Christmas is pagan. Hey, not I, but Christ. If you've been watching the stream, you're watching what Wes Huff said, you're watching what Mike Jones is saying, it's pretty clear that Christmas is not necessarily pagan, you know?
Tree collection. And if you'll notice, it says Christmas log. Odd. Well, where's the first mention of Yule log? Oh, just, about 40 years later, by John Aubrey. Calls it a Yule log.
Yule log. Yule log. We're going to get ourselves a full hog. We're going to pull off the tree, and then we're going to get into the pool to cool. Although, why would you get into the pool in Christmas time? That's probably freezing by now. I'm writing on my Yule blog.
There's the first mention of Yule log, guys. There's no evidence. It goes back to paganism. Yule just meant to the English people a midwinter period. Okay? So, do the math. Basically, Yule probably is a word that came from Norse into English, and then when it came in, it just meant a midwinter period. And then, of course,
it's hot right now? Okay. Not bars. No, they're logs. Okay. But yeah, I would say the thing is, I think we've seen clearly from this text that, it's not pagan in origin. It's not pagan in origin. It's like July and Christmas instead. Yeah, honestly. What do you think of the idea of Jesus being born in September? Look, honestly, I don't know when Jesus was born. The Bible doesn't tell us. It was most likely born in springtime. The thing is, you don't have to celebrate the birth of Jesus on Christmas Day. I think that, first of all, you don't have to celebrate the birth of Jesus on Jesus's birth. I think that that's the first point we need to draw. There's no rule that says, thus saith the Lord, you must celebrate the birth of a prophet or the birth of my son on his actual birthday. No, Christmas is just a day consecrated to celebrate the birth of Jesus at an appropriate time when that would be most sensible, right? Which is at the end of the year when everyone is, when it's cold and everyone needs to bundle up and stuff like that. It's mostly for pragmatic reasons, I think. Mostly, I think at this point. So whether he was born in September, born in March, born in April, whatever he was born in, I think Christmas time now, December 25th, is a perfectly fine time to celebrate his birthday.
Winter, they like to burn logs to keep warm, so people just started calling it the Yule log because in the midwinter time you burn logs. So, no, Yule logs do not go back to paganism. Mistletoe does not go back to paganism. Stockings do not go back to paganism. Nativity scenes don't go back to paganism, but I've had to debunk that one too. Nothing I can find, no major holiday tradition goes back to paganism. You're safe.
For now you're safe, but who knows? There could be some other future practice where paganism comes in, and then eventually everyone's celebrating it, and then we're all back to the dilemma, the Christian dilemma yet again, which is Christmas. Okay? You celebrate Christmas, you're damned. You don't celebrate Christmas, you're also damned.
So here's what I want to tell you. If any one of your relatives comes up to you with that smirk on their face, or a friend you says, Christmas is really a pagan holiday, you don't have to throw all this data at them. Just do this. What ancient sources show Christmas is pagan? They won't have any. You know how I know? Because I've asked that question year after year and I never get any. 9 times out of 10, they just leave or they say, Google it.
Google it. Dude, that's such an epic response in a debate. You should do that, Layman. Just like in the middle of a debate, when Toronto asks you what verse shows you must believe Jesus is God, just say, just Google it. Simple as that. Just Google it. Like, you don't just no explanation. Just Google it. What, you're asking me to show you the verse? Look, go to ChatGPT. It's probably better than me. That's bars. Okay. I'll be damned for Christmas.
Okay, well, I did, and you're wrong. So there. Every now and then they'll give me a source. They'll be like, well, it's mentioned in St. Bede. Where in St. Bede? Give me the passage. I'd like to read it. I want to look it up myself. Please give me the passage. They won't have it because there's no evidence. It's pagan. It just isn't. No early Christians said, we're going to take this pagan holiday and rework it for Jesus. No early Christian said, stop celebrating on December 25th. That's really a pagan holiday. No. We don't start seeing that until later in the Middle Ages when they're trying to figure out where this date came from. And they started to posit that it may have been a pagan holiday. But they were wrong. And that's what a lot of historians today will note.
Yeah, it's sort of like a curve, right? It's sort of like a curve. It's like the really like the really dumb people, they'll say that, like, it's like a bell curve. It's like the people on the lower end of the spectrum, they'll say, oh, Christmas is pagan, guys. You know, Jeremiah 10. You know, it's something like that. Like they'll say it's like pagan, or it'll be like the atheists. It's like Christmas is pagan, and then you get like to the mid tier, and then it'll be like, okay, Christmas now isn't pagan, but it had pagan origins. It's like the middle balanced approach, right? And then the end of the bell curve, like the really smart 140 IQ Bible engineer people, they'll say, no, Christmas isn't pagan at all. The pagans stole their holidays from Christmas. Okay. I'm just saying, you know, there's a bell curve. I see it. It's pretty consistent.
Now, I'm going to let you know a little secret, though. I actually wish Christmas was a pagan holiday. I wish it was originally a pagan holiday.
I wish it was invented by the Jews. Then I don't even have to celebrate it. Dude, because it's like Halloween. I literally don't celebrate Halloween. Not because I think it's pagan. It might be pagan, but because I just don't like Halloween. I don't care about the holiday. Genuinely, the only thing that's good about it is you get to have candy for less money or something. You get to have bundles. The day after Christmas, nobody's buying candy. So you go into Walmart, buy yourself that big pack of candy, probably almost sold out. You got the last one, pay like half off for it, 30% off for it. That's a good deal. That's the only thing I like about Halloween. Anything else, I don't really care.
And the Christian church decided to revamp it, take it, use it, and say, you know what, now we're going to honor Jesus. Why? Well, I can explain it to you in the form of a meme. But pagans use evergreen fir trees. Yes, I celebrate one of the holiest days of the year by decorating my home with trophies of my vanquished foes. Now, here's the important thing I want you to take away from this. Who's reigning? It's not the pine tree god. Okay?
Again, the post-mill argumentation is insane. The post-mill argumentation is crazy. Okay? Stop saying that Jesus is reigning now. In one sense, he's reigning. He's reigning as God before he did in the beginning of time. But he's not reigning on the Davidic throne like 1 Corinthians 15 is about. You get that in your post-mill mind. Okay? Repent.
Jesus is reigning. And he has sort of taken everything and he's putting it under his feet. And I'll give you an example. So I'm not sure if I'm allowed to show this image in a Protestant church, but here's the Vatican. Sorry. But I want you to...
No, Vatican. Get away. I can't. My eyes.
Focus on that right there. That's an obelisk from Egypt. Emperor Caligula, around 37 AD, took that from Egypt and placed it in Rome. Pagan emperor moved it from Egypt to Rome.
Yeah, you're right, Ian. That's the exact same passage I quoted. to justify that. Look, even if it was pagan, it doesn't matter. Even if it was, look, I'm going to take the 3090 PC under the Christmas tree, even if you don't want to take it because of your religious beliefs. I'll take it. You can give it to me. I'll take it under the Christmas tree. Okay.
That's been there. What are the
Law does not approve of Vatican imagery. Oh man. Oh,
Christians going to do?
woof, woof. We got it. We got out of the Vatican, boys. Okay. All roads lead back to Rome.
Well, we're not.
But you know, the good thing about all roads leading to Rome is that all roads also lead out of Rome. So I think about that for a second.
ISIS. We're not going to destroy an ancient monument that has been there since ancient Egypt. So in the 1500s, Pope Sixtus removed the pagan dedications, placed that cross on top, and rededicated it as a symbol of a finger pointing up to Christ. Now, I'm not saying we need to go do that to anything that's pagan out there, but I think this is the mentality we need to have. You meant that for evil? Fine, we'll take it and use it for good. You decide.
Maybe the real Rome is the friends we made along the way. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful, guys. Oh, man.
I think you're going to use something to honor your pagan god. Well, guess what? Now it's ours.
We took that. Your Christmas tree, we took that. Your Yule log, we took that. Okay. Your songs, we took that. Okay. Your apples, we took those. Apples weren't even invented. We took that too. Okay. We took your presents. We took your sacrifices. We took your girl. We took your car. We took your fit. We took your life. Okay. We took your ops. Okay. We took your homeboy. We took everything from you. Okay. Because what the ops meant for evil, the homeboys meant for good. what the Bloods meant for evil, the Crips meant for good. You're late. Okay. Quad. You can't just say that stuff. Okay? Because now you have that image of Pulp Fiction in my mind, and there are some things you can't take back.
Because there's only one God reigning, and that's Christ. Paul says in Ephesians, when he ascended on high, he led a host of captives, and he gave gifts to men.
Yo, guys. I don't know how to whistle, by the way, so I don't know how to do that Leo DiCaprio meme. But bro, he gave gifts to men. This is talking about Christmas. Dude. Okay.
What captives? Well, as I said, Christ is reigning. He's putting all things under his feet. Well, who? Well, everything that may have been used to pagan. I'm going to show you one of my favorite pieces of artwork out there from about a century ago. This is called The Triumph of Christianity Over Paganism. I love this image. I could stare at this for hours. It's just amazing.
Dude. Hold on. Wait, hold on. Legit? If someone sends me the link to this image, I'll make it as my phone pic. Literally, like, this goes hard. This goes so hard. Okay?
See Christianity triumphing over paganism, because I love it. There are the pagan gods falling before the cross. The symbol that they crucified the Lord with is what is their downfall now.
Free grace is pagan because the acronym LOTUS to describe our doctrine, which means we're actually Hindus since we're using their imagery. Dude, flowers come from pagans. Dude, that's actually, honestly, it's kind of baller, though. It's kind of baller. But yeah, your Nazi imagery, we don't want that. We don't want that. Okay, we actually don't want that. But okay, this is again a side note. It's kind of weird that we have a torture device being used as like an everyday sort of like nonchalant. Well, like nowadays it's nonchalant and everyday. But back in first century, when Paul said, "We preach Christ crucified," right? The preaching of the cross is those who perish foolishness. When he said that, that was scandalous. Because when you mentioned cross, that was like electric. Think of electric chair. No, don't think of electric chair. Think of waterboarding. Okay, like that's like whoa. What are you talking about? Cross? Whoa, you can't just say cross, bro. You can't just but like we use an actual torture device, and we wear torture devices on our necks. Like think about it. Imagine if it was like a chair, an electric chair that we wore around our necks. That would be kind of insane. Like, I mean, yeah, it's okay, like, you know, it's cultural, it's appropriate now and whatever, you know, over time, but it is kind of crazy to me.
Roman torture device. We're going to put our enemies on that cross, kill you before our gods. And now look at it. It's defeating them. They no longer reign. There are no temples to Zeus today.
Yeah, they didn't even use cross. Like Peter used the word tree. Now, of course, obviously tree is, you know, the Jehovah's Witnesses get caught up. Oh, it says he was on the tree, not on the cross, even though every other reference is to a cross because it's crucified, right? But whatever. You know, so they think he was on a stick, which is, again, it's whatever. But honestly, it's, to me, it's like again, we use cross every day, but back then they'd say tree, they'd say, you know, even when Jesus said, hey, if you're not willing to take up your cross, right? If you're willing to come to me, you must be willing to take up your cross, right? And follow me. You must be prepared to die, is what you're saying, is what he's saying.
Now, I want you to think, what did Christ give us when he said, if Paul says in Ephesians, he gave gifts to men? He gave us a spirit of victory.
He gave, I think that's talking about, in context, we later on, it's talking about the spiritual gifts given to the church. My thing. My interpretation of that. So you could call it whatever you want.
You're not supposed to live in fear. You think the devil has any power now? You
think the devil has any power now? He does, actually. He's called the God of this world. Just saying. He prowls around like a roaring lion. Now, of course, ultimately, he won't have that power. He'll be dispersed from it. But in the meantime, he has usurped the throne, right?
Zeus has power? No. You can't accidentally worship a pagan god. Some people have told me that if you put a present under a fir tree, you're bowing down to that fir tree. Guys, you can't accidentally worship a pagan deity. I've not been walking through the forest and trip, stand in front of a tree and go, oh, dang it, I accidentally worshiped the tree. That's not how it works. How much power do you think the devil has?
Probably a lot. Again, this is the post-mill brain coming in. This is his post-mill, like Satan is bound, Kenneth Gentry, type arguments. Oh, the devil doesn't have any power now. Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? Like I don't know, man. Seems a little bit sus.
If you're somehow honoring a pagan deity by putting presents under a tree. There's a pastor that I was responding to about Halloween recently, and he was saying, if you put your kid in a costume, you're helping worship the devil. And I'm like, how much power do you think the devil has on October 31st?
He probably has the same amount of power he has all throughout the other year. I don't think that like 3 a.m. or whatever is like a special time for demons. But, I would say, dude, you're not worshiping Satan if you're putting on a costume. Every time you sin, you already worship Satan. So you're not like, there's degrees of it, obviously. But it's like you don't need to put on a costume to sin. You could sin without the costume if you want. So, you know what I mean? It's just silly to me. It's just so silly to me.
That you just dressed your kid up like the Avengers and let them get candy. You're somehow honoring the devil?
Again, nobody reads Colossians 2. and Romans 14.
Do you think Christ living in you is that weak? Do you think he's that insecure, that he's worried about pine trees and collecting candy or Easter eggs?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, guys, Jesus is basically like your, like a 14-year-old sort of like boy with his girlfriend being like, oh, you can't talk to these other guys. Okay, you can't have your guy friends. Okay, you can't even have your girlfriends. Okay, it's like you think that Jesus is jealous about other false gods that don't exist. That's insane.
He is not. I can guarantee you he is far more powerful and far more secure to worry about these kinds of things. Even if it did go back to paganism, he's claimed it for his own. God created all the trees, all the days of the year. He's got dibs on December 25th in pine trees. I'm sorry. That's just the rule. But what if you come across that guy that's like, look, I just really don't want to celebrate Christmas. I just feel a conviction on my heart not to. Fine. Romans 14. Some people abstain from certain foods, some do not. No one judge. If you don't want to celebrate Christmas, fine. But then don't come with that holier than thou attitude and go, neither should you if you really want to be holy like me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is literally what Paul talks about. He's like, dude, yeah, you can have it in your conscience, but don't inflict it on other people. Like, hey, you struggle with one thing, you struggle with whatever. Like, for instance, let's say you struggle with alcoholism and you can't even be around a drink. You can't even be around wine. Well, hey, don't be around wine. Don't drink the wine if you know you're going to get drunk off of it later on. But don't tell other people, oh, you can't drink the wine because I can't get drunk off the wine. No, you can't do that. Same with food. Hey, if you look at the company donuts from Dunkin' Donuts, and you're like, oh, I gotta have. You take a Boston cream, you take a rainbow one, you take you take a Christmas one with the sprinkles on top. You take like 4 different donuts. If that's you, just don't take the donut, but don't tell your friend, hey, but you can't take the donuts though. You can't take the donuts though because I'm not taking the donut. You can't do that. Okay. Same goes with the PS5 and the 3090.
You're not. And that is a dangerous, dangerous mentality. It's the very thing that led to the fall, the beginning fall. You guys remember this verse from Genesis 3? Eve says to the serpent, we were told that you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it. Anyone notice the problem? God never said they couldn't touch the tree. They could have swung from it. They could have climbed it. They could have slept in it. They just couldn't eat from it. But Eve and Adam decided they're going to add an additional law, an additional tradition on top of God's law. So they're extra protected.
Dude. Well, I already kind of knew that. But it's very interesting because when it comes to legalism isn't obedience to what God revealed. It's really not. Although I could say you could be a Judaizer if you want to go back to the Mosaic law. Like if you retrogress back to a previous law that is not in effect anymore, then yeah. But if legalism is where you add laws that don't exist, it's where you add laws that weren't in the scriptures to make yourself seem more holy, to make yourself seem more all that. And Paul directly addresses that multiple times,
And as we know, that actually led to the downfall. Sometimes
I'm wondering though, because isn't he I'm pretty sure at this time inspiring philosophy was theistic evolutionist. I'm thinking about that. So does he even believe the story is like historical? If so, why is he quoting it like it's historical? Why is he quoting it like it's a real event that actually happened? That to me, that doesn't really make sense. Unless he does believe, unless he's actually a creationist. I don't know.
Sometimes we think we need to help God. Yeah, I know he didn't really outlaw Christmas in the Bible, but I just really feel like we shouldn't be doing it because it's going to really make us extra holy. What, you think God got it wrong? You think he didn't get it right the first time? You got to add your additional traditions of men to help God's law along by saying that, oh yeah, Christmas is, really we shouldn't be doing it. And if we don't, it would make the church far more holy. It's funny that people that are trying to help God along,
I don't think that avoiding Christmas would make the church more holy. I think that it would make the church kind of weak, because like you have, like, let's say every Christian just boom, stop celebrating Christmas just like that, just because some decree went out or something, right? If that was the case, then dude, it's gonna look so weak. It's like, dude, you literally made up a holiday and then you just stopped celebrating it because you thought that holiday was pagan. That is kind of funny. That's kind of hilarious.
times are the ones that lead to the biggest disasters. So I want to leave you with this here. There is no evidence Christmas is a pagan holiday. There's none whatsoever. Christmas is not pagan. And even if it was, and I kind of wish, I still do, it doesn't matter. Christ has reclaimed it. We serve a secure and powerful God who is not so weak that his followers will accidentally be honoring pagan deities or the devil by putting presents under a tree. Let me repeat, how weak do you think Christ is living in you? He's not. He can handle a few pine trees. So celebrate Christmas, but remember Christ is what Christmas is really about. Don't make presents more. Don't make materialism more. Focus on Christ. But having some additional customs is not inherently evil. God is not going to be offended or mad about that, as long as we don't put those above him, which I think should be obvious.
See, these are words of wisdom. These are words of wisdom here.
Now, if you want more, I do have a YouTube channel. You can see more there. I cover a lot of different topics there. But if you want to, if you get that relative that's really bothering you, and I know sometimes we get that guy, send them this video, Top 10 Christmas Traditions and Their Origin Story. I know that some people in here probably have got that guy that they encounter with Facebook. It's like, I'm not going to celebrate Christmas, and neither should you. Send them this video.
Yeah, I don't know. Those guys are weird to me. It's like, yeah, you could not celebrate Christmas. You just don't have to tell me about it. Like, we live in such a weird time where people just feel so comfortable to just share their entire life. Not even like just some aspects of it, but like their entire life and their thoughts and their emotions and their emotional state and what they're currently experiencing. Like, we're just in that age where that's like a thing. Dude, I don't care if you celebrate Christmas or not. I don't care that, we're not letting you see all these other families with these houses decorate. We didn't decorate our house this time. We didn't decorate on Christmas. We're different. Like, I don't care who asked.
If you go to YouTube and you just type in that title, you'll find it easily and send it to them. And I guarantee they won't watch it, but at least you have something to throw at them. And this will also give you far more data to show you that Christmas is not pagan. So with that, let's close in prayer. Father, we thank you for giving us a spirit of victory. We don't have to fear the devil or his minions or any puny pagan deity out there.
Doesn't Peter say you should fear, like you should flee the devil? James 4, you should watch for the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion. Seems to me like again, I'm not going against the point of what he's saying, but I think his argument is not well made, in my opinion.
We know you have triumphed over them with the cross. You have given us victory, gifts to men. We now reign, and we are honored to be able to celebrate your victories. And we do that in one way, through Christmas, when the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. For that, we thank you, we praise you. Amen.
All right, that was good. That was great. What else is there? We're gonna briefly read Luke chapter You have Luke chapter 2. Okay. Luke 2, 1 onward. And you have... Oh, Layman is there. Hey, he's already here, man.
APB.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't have to work
so
today.
we have it here. Oh, good. No, that's really great. So it said, there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said to them, do not fear. Behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And you even have also in, right, Luke, Matthew chapter 1, right, 20, right, 1, 19 to onward, right, you have, it says, but whilst he thought of these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, you son of David, do not fear to take Mary your wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. And she shall bring forth a son, and you will call his name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. Now all this was done, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, behold, a virgin shall be with child, and will bring forth a son, and they will call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us. So ultimately, Christmas is not bad. We learned today that Christmas is not demonic. We watched 2 videos about it. And I think it's pretty clear. And so if you don't want to celebrate Christmas, then hey, you could take from this video whatever you want. It's a good lesson, but I'm just gonna go out and not do all of this Christmas shenanigans because it's too commercialized, and that's fine. But if you do want to celebrate Christmas, then it's very simple, right? Just a Merry Christmas, everyone. Glad tidings, whatever you want to call it. It's been a good year, right? Of doing the streams, starting off the year with my presentation, ending the year later with my presentations as well, that hopefully you enjoyed. And this was I wanted to do this video last year, but I ended up doing a different type video for obvious reasons. And Lambert is absolutely right. But basically the point is that before we end it, I'm going to say to anyone who hasn't believed in here, because I'm going to be gone for a few weeks, but Jesus Christ was born this. He was born not on December 25th, but whatever day he was born, as the Son of God. He is God, right? That's why he's God with us. And he lived as a man. He felt as a man, and then he died as a man for everyone's sins. And that's not the end of the story. He resurrected from the dead 3 days later, and now he's at the right hand of God. And he's going to come back and judge the living and the dead. And if you want everlasting life with him, you just simply have to believe that what he did it for you, and you're saved forever. It's as simple as that. And that is probably the best Christmas gift you can have this season. And so I just wanted to end it there. So yeah, I think we're basically done, Layman.
Okay,
So,
good.
Merry
Merry Christmas out there to those that celebrate it. I personally think that Christmas is connected to Hanukkah. That's my belief.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
But
yeah,
thank you, BB.
Right. I will be gone obviously for the Christmas season, even after January, and I will probably come back. You'll see me next time next year. I want to say around 2. I'm not going to be doing one this week, next week, and then the week after that. So 3 weeks, really. 3 weeks, you'll see me again, and it's gonna be great. So yeah, everyone, happy holidays, and I want, and just whatever you do, do it with your family, right? And bless.
God bless, guys.